I am in a fairly windy Sheffield today, and I've decided that while I'm here, I'm going to be answering the question of is Sheffield worth visiting? So by the end of this video, you will have my full opinion on the city alongside whether I think you should come here or not. So I am going to head down to the city centre now, and let's see what Sheffield is really all about. So if you know anything about Sheffield, you know it can commonly be called the Steel City, and already we're walking down a staircase, which I believe is called the Steel Stairs or something like that. So that's a nice bit of culture already into the video. The quickest way to get into the city centre is to cross the tram tracks on the level crossing, walk straight through the train station, and go into the square, which I believe is called the Station Square. And while it might not sound like it, I haven't actually done any research about Sheffield. I managed to hold myself back just to kind of explore it properly, because usually I do lots of research and it's just not as fun when you know what everything is. So we are here at the level crossing. Here we are. Luckily there aren't any ticket checks, so you can walk straight through. So I don't think they check tickets when you're walking over the bridge, so we should be safe just to walk straight through. I've just come behind the square and there's this giant steel, I'm guessing it's representing Sheffield as the Steel City. And I have actually seen this before. I know I didn't do any research, but I saw it in Steve Marsh's video that he made about the snooker, and it is a lot bigger than I thought it was. It's like, just going to walk along to the end and see how we can get into the actual city centre rather than just the station square. So far we're on a positive. Now let's head into the city centre and see what else Sheffield has to offer. So obviously Sheffield, being in the middle of the Pennines, or at the end of the Pennines, either one, is quite a hilly city, which isn't good when you're lugging 2 days worth of clothes around because you have to check out of your hotel early. That's only my fault, isn't it? It's not Sheffield's fault. We've got some very vibrant, colourful art on the side of this building. Usually when you see art on the side of a building, it might be because it's shut down shop or something like that. But I think it actually seems okay. And I say okay, it's really nice. So that's positive there. So if there's anything I want to do today or see today, it is to see the City Hall. And obviously having done no research, I don't know where it is. But hopefully from there we might be able to get a tram somewhere just to see what the public transport's like. So as you can see here, lots of the more modern architecture is really based on that idea of the Steel City. So that's very cultural there. And if I were doing my challenges I did in Birmingham, that would already be one ticked off. I've just come off the road there, and speaking of roads, I'm seeing a lot of buses, and when you have a lot of buses, you have a lot of big roads. Our only downside so far is that it can sometimes be quite difficult to cross the road. I believe I'm walking onto a square called Tudor Square. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure. And here are the gardens, which I saw in Steve Marsh's video. I don't know what they're called either, but please let me know in the usual way down below in the comments. And as always, we've got more art dotted around Sheffield, which represents its heritage in steel. And of course, there are also water features. So in Manchester, all of the water features I saw were basically just shut off in the weekdays, and they'll be opened on the weekend, but this, all week. Found out these are called the Sheffield Winter Gardens, and it's free to enter, so let's go in and just see what it is in there. So I'm assuming it's something to do with a garden, but we'll see. So I have opted to take my jumper off because it is very hot in here and it's not much better outside. I'm just walking through Winter Gardens, exiting now, and I see the Crucible, which is epic. I'm not sure, I think this might be Tudor Square. I don't know if the other one was or not. Let's just get closer to the Crucible then, shall we? So here is the Crucible. This is where the Kazoo World Snooker Championships took place earlier this year. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Let's just go down here, see what's here, because I think it's getting a little bit more historic. So we might be able to see the City Hall or the Town Hall. I'm not quite sure what it's called. I'm seeing a lot of red brick around here, and I believe that's Sheffield Cathedral. I'm not sure, it might just be some random church. I think that is Sheffield Cathedral though, because I see the tram stop. I know I said earlier that it can be quite tedious crossing roads constantly. I'd say Sheffield's a very walkable city, and that is one thing that should help you decide whether you want to visit here or not. It says on that sign there that it's St Marie's Cathedral, so I'm assuming just Sheffield Cathedral, but that's not what it's actually called. This is the second Tesco Express I've seen here, so they're very convenient. I've also seen a Sainsbury's local, so you have lots of availability when it comes to shopping. Now, I can't be entirely sure, but I think I found Sheffield Town Hall. I've just made it to the front of this building. It is Sheffield Town Hall, completed in 1896, which is... Right, so you probably wouldn't have seen any of my walk here because the microphone was failing for a sec. But I basically said, we've made it to that famous square. They do like their water here. And then I walked around there, came onto the other side, through to here. So I'm going to head away from all of this up there to that slightly quieter area by the modern buildings. And quiet doesn't always mean good, nor does modern, but I think it should be fairly nice up there. So I'm just looking for directions to the City Hall tram stop, which is bizarrely not next to the City Hall. And I think we have to head up this way anyway, so that's good. Hopefully I'm not going to end up in some really sketchy area of Sheffield like I did in Birmingham and Portsmouth, I think. There's another amazing building over here in yet another square. This might be the new City Hall or some sort of theatre. It feels quite wealthy and posh around here, but it's also really quiet, so I'm not complaining. And these buildings are just very nice. According to Google Maps, the tram stop is down this road, so let's not get sidetracked, as we always do. And I hear a tram, which is promising. So I'm just walking away from the tram stop now. I wasn't really intending to get a tram this early in the video, so I'm not going to do that right now. And I don't even know if I'll end up doing that at some point during the video, but I will probably come back to Sheffield at some point and do something with the trams, but I don't think I'm going to be doing that today. This is another lovely old building. They seem to be preserving their old architecture very well, or particularly the red brick stuff. Another thing is, I don't know if any of you know or not, but the trams are actually run by Stagecoach, which is fairly interesting. Here is our second Sainsbury's local of the day, so far I've seen 2 Sainsbury's locals and 2 Tesco Expresses. And I am back around the other side of the City Hall, the new one that is, and we're going to head down here, down a separate road. Look at this, really nice paving here. I've decided to walk off the main road onto this little side street. Probably just going to end up where I was a few minutes ago, but I do see a slightly different area. And there's quite a few food places around here, as we'll see. There is a similar place in Manchester where we've been staying. I never got to explore it, but I heard about it when I was doing my research. If you want to see my video I filmed in Manchester, it would have been out before the Blackpool one, so before last week. Fairly nice view of the city, more fantastic art. Since I've come up to the north, there's just so much to comment on. There's just so much representation of the steel heritage here in Sheffield. It's all of a sudden got really windy here. It's probably just because we came out behind that building. We are at another pedestrianised square. I haven't been counting, but we have to have seen 5 or 6 by now, surely. So I have just discovered that just like Manchester, Sheffield also has free buses into the city centre. Those are some very interesting buildings there. Not as interesting as the ones we saw in Blackpool, but that one especially is fairly interesting. I'm walking down this bigger high street. I'm assuming it's kind of the main one. I do like going up a nice escalator, but this one seems to be going quite slow. I got to have my first go on a travelator yesterday, which makes escalators seem a little bit boring, but that's still fun to be on nonetheless. Anyway, there's nothing to see down here, so let's go down the escalators now. Ooh. That was a little bit boring for you. Look at that building down there. I'm assuming it's just a shopping centre, just like the rest of them. But that is a very fascinating piece of architecture. I seem to be saying that a lot in this video, but they do have a lot of interesting buildings. So that's an actual Sainsbury's there. So we've seen 3 Sainsbury's and 3 Tesco's. Right, so I found some fast food spots on Google Maps right by the station. So we're walking back there now. So I'm guessing the video is coming to an end, but not quite yet. We still have a 14-minute walk to the station. So I'll see you somewhere in between here and there. There's some fairly nice looking hotels up ahead. So we seem to be entering that part of the city where all the buildings just turn into hotels and there's not really any offices anymore. We're just approaching part of the giant campus of Sheffield Hallam University. There's more steel art here outside this building and it is everywhere. It kind of reminds me of that thing we saw in Cardiff Bay over in January the 27th, I think it was. I uploaded that video. Can't believe I remember that. This tree is overhanging the pavement. Let's try and get through it. Here is that weird looking shiny building from earlier, which means the station is right over there. By the way, if you're interested, there's bike paths on both sides of the road here in this part of Sheffield. And here we are at Sheffield Station. It's behind me. I was going to film the lunch section of this video, but I decided against it because of the time. We have to catch our train back in about an hour. So, I mean, it's not really a good excuse, but I'm just tired, so I want to end the video. So, I think I'm filming quite an exciting video in the East Midlands next week. Or not next week for me, next week for you. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.